Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. In the cool, dimly lit expanse of our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, feeling a cold dread creeping up my spine. Mary, my wife of 7 years, had just stepped out to meet her friends for their regular Sunday brunch, or so she said. Her phone, left charging on the dresser, buzzed with yet another notification. Driven by a sudden, inexplicable impulse, I reached for it. Scrolling through the call history, a number I didn't recognize appeared repeatedly. It wasn't saved under any name, just stark digits that seemed to pulse with a dark promise. Confused and with my heart pounding, I dialed the number before I could talk myself out of it. Hello. The voice on the other end was unmistakably male, tinged with surprise. I'm Mary's husband, I stammered, my voice tight with a tension I couldn't disguise. There was a pause, a heavy silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. Her husband? The man's voice cracked, a clear note of shock undercutting his confusion. I had no idea she was married. The room spun slightly as his words sank in. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling the betrayal slice through me. Yes, she's married. To me. Who are you? I don't think I should say, he replied, suddenly cautious. His surprise had shifted to wariness, as if he sensed the precipice we both now teetered upon. The conversation ended abruptly, but the seed of doubt had blossomed into a dark flower of betrayal. I couldn't believe my ears. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was leading a double life. Fury built inside me like a storm. I didn't confront Mary immediately. Instead, I plotted. Every quiet moment was spent in contemplation, my mind turning over the possibilities like a master chess player. I would catch her in her lies, expose her deceit. This betrayal wouldn't go unanswered. Days passed. I observed her, noting every hurried phone call, every secretive smile at her phone. The trust that had been the bedrock of our relationship crumbled day by day under the weight of my suspicions. Finally, I couldn't take the charade any longer. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when I confronted her. Who is he, Mary? I demanded, the moment she stepped through the door, her umbrella dripping on the wooden floor. Mary froze, her face draining of color. What are you talking about, John? The man you've been calling, I hissed, thrusting her phone towards her, the damning number highlighted on the screen. The confrontation was explosive. Accusations flew, tears fell, and the painful truth came out. Mary was unfaithful, and with her confession, the last thread of our marriage snapped. The divorce was swift. I walked away from the wreckage of our marriage, my heart seared with pain, but a plan for revenge simmering in the depths of my newfound coldness. Our paths parted forever, each step echoing the silent promise of retribution that lay ahead. The beginning of my plot had taken root, and Mary would soon learn the cost of betrayal. The days following the divorce seemed to bleed together in a blur of numbing routines and silent evenings. Yet beneath the calm surface, my mind whirled with plotting, the gears turning tirelessly. If Mary thought our legal separation was the end, she was sorely mistaken. Retribution was a dish best served cold, and I intended to chill it to the bone. A few weeks post-divorce, I began my first move. I had learned from our shared friend, Tom, about a weekend retreat Mary was planning to attend. It was the perfect opportunity for my initial strike. Are you sure about this, John? Tom asked, his voice laced with concern over the phone. I mean, revenge. Is that really what you want? It's not about want anymore, Tom. It's about what's fair. She needs to understand what she's done, I replied, my voice steady with resolve. Tom sighed, all right, man. I told you when it is. Just, be careful. Careful indeed. I arranged to accidentally bump into Mary at the retreat. The place was picturesque, a secluded lodge surrounded by the dense foliage of whispering pines. I arrived under the guise of a lost hiker, my appearance meticulously unkempt to avoid recognition. When I saw her, chatting animatedly by the fire pit, a surge of bitterness tightened my chest. She looked relaxed, unburdened by the havoc she had wreaked on my life. I approached, feigning surprise at seeing her. "Mary!" "What a surprise," I exclaimed, my voice dripping with feigned joy. Her smile faltered, confusion and then recognition dawning in her eyes. "John. What are you, how did you?" "Just hiking and found this place." "Looks cozy," I said, looking around nonchalantly. "You look well." The awkwardness was palpable. Mary shifted on her feet, clearly uncomfortable. "Yes, well, life goes on, right?" "Indeed, it does," I said, my tone light, but my eyes cold. She sensed the chill and excused herself shortly after, retreating to the safety of her group. Over the weekend, I wove myself into the fabric of her retreat. At meals, I sat close enough for uncomfortable glances but far enough to avoid direct conversation. On group hikes, I lingered at the edges of her vision. My presence, a ghost she couldn't quite shake. It was petty, perhaps, but it was just the beginning. As the retreat drew to a close, I found her alone, gazing out over the lake. The autumn air was crisp, leaves swirling in golden eddies around her. "Mary," I began, stepping beside her. "Do you ever think about us? About everything that happened?" She flinched, then turned to face me, her expression weary. "John, I'm sorry for everything. I really am. Can we not do this here?" "Oh, we're doing this here, Mary. Because you need to understand, I'm not done. You haven't begun to feel the consequences of your actions," I whispered, the threat veiled behind a calm demeanor. Her eyes widened with fear, and for the first time, I saw the impact of my words hit home. I left the retreat with a grim smile. The seeds of vengeance were sown, and as I drove away, the satisfaction of seeing her unsettled filled me with a dark warmth. This was just the start. Mary's peaceful days were numbered, and I would make sure of it. After the retreat, I threw myself into the next phase of my plan with renewed zeal. Mary's shaken demeanor had only fueled my resolve. It was time to escalate, to intertwine her daily life with the web of my vengeance so tightly that she could no longer ignore the looming shadows I cast. I started by reaching out to our mutual acquaintances, subtly weaving stories of Mary's deceit and my resultant plight. "You won't believe what I've been through," I'd say with a sigh, painting myself as the wounded party. My tales, while rooted in truth, were embellished with the sort of details that made them stick in one's mind, spreading like wildfire. One evening, I arranged to, coincidentally, meet one of Mary's closer friends, Linda, at a local bar. As I sat at the dimly lit corner table, I spotted Linda entering, and I waved her over with a practiced smile. "John. It's been ages. How are you holding up?" Linda asked, concern etching her features as she took the seat across from me. "I'm managing, Linda. It's tough, you know. After everything with Mary." I trailed off, letting the sentence hang, heavy with unsaid words. Linda leaned in, her voice low. "I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry, John. If there's anything I can do to help." "Actually," I began, glancing around before continuing, "just being aware is helpful. I'd hate for what happened to me to happen to someone else because they didn't know the full story." Linda nodded, her eyes wide with the gravity of my insinuated secrets. "I understand, John. It's just, shocking, you know." As she left later that night, I knew she would carry my words with her, spreading them further into Mary's circle, isolating her, one conversation at a time. The next step involved the digital realm. I began to monitor Mary's online activity through a series of dummy accounts. When she posted about her achievements or shared moments of joy, I was there anonymously to subtly undercut her. Comments like, "Isn't it wonderful to see someone so happy, despite everything," appeared. Innocuous to an outsider, but a clear signal to her that I was watching. As weeks turned into months, I could tell the pressure was beginning to wear on her. Mary's posts became less frequent, her smiles and photos more strained. I had infiltrated her sense of security, sowing doubt and discomfort that I knew would ripple back to her in waves of anxiety. Then came the confrontation that I had been meticulously orchestrating. At a mutual friend's party, I approached her, a friendly facade plastered on my face. "Mary, can we talk?" "Just for a moment," I asked, gesturing to a quiet corner of the garden. Reluctantly, she followed, her posture tense. "What is it, John? You seem stressed, Mary." "If you ever need to talk, I'm here," I offered, the hypocrisy of my words tasting sweet in my mouth. "Why are you doing this, John? Following me around, turning friends against me?" Her voice cracked, a mix of anger and desperation. "I'm just living my life, Mary. If our paths cross, that's not my doing. And friends? They make their own choices based on truths, don't they?" I replied coolly. She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "This isn't you, John. This spite, this cruelty. It's not you." "Maybe not," I conceded with a shrug. "But maybe you never really knew me. Just like I never knew you." Leaving her standing alone, I walked back into the party, feeling the weight of her gaze on my back. The game was far from over, but every encounter, every whispered word, tightened the noose of my making. Mary's world was shrinking, and I held the strings. The culmination of my intricate plans approached with the precision of a masterfully crafted timepiece, each second ticking towards the inevitable confrontation that would shatter the last vestiges of Mary's composed facade. My tactics had evolved. They were no longer just whispers and shadows but overt actions designed to bring her world crashing down around her. It was on a brisk, overcast Saturday that I orchestrated the final scene of my revenge. Mary was scheduled to receive a prestigious community award for her volunteer work. The irony of her public adoration, juxtaposed against her private deception, fueled my resolve. I had one last card to play, a revelation that would publicly unveil her betrayal. Throughout our marriage, Mary had maintained an email correspondence with an old friend from college, a man whose name she whispered in her sleep, whose messages she guarded with a fervent secrecy. I had accessed these emails during the throes of our crumbling relationship, biding my time. Arriving at the community center where the award ceremony was held, I mingled among the crowd, a nondescript figure in the sea of attendees. As Mary took the stage, radiant and smiling, the crowd clapped enthusiastically. Little did she know, every person in the room was about to see her in a completely different light. As she began her acceptance speech, I sent the emails to every printer in the building. Within moments, the hum of machines filled the air, and sheets of paper fluttered into the waiting hands of puzzled guests. "What's this?" someone murmured near me, eyes scanning the contents. Whispers grew into murmurs, and murmurs into exclamations. Mary's words faltered as she noticed the commotion, her eyes widening in horror as she saw the sheets of paper being passed around. Her gaze found mine, and the realization dawned upon her, I was the architect of her disgrace. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's respect the integrity of our event," the host tried to salvage the situation, but it was too late. Confronting her amidst the chaos, I walked up to the stage, my voice calm and clear. "Did you really think you could hide forever, Mary? You, who preach about trust and loyalty?" Her voice trembled, barely audible over the rising clamor. "John, please. No, Mary. It's done. Everyone knows now. Knows who you really are," I declared, turning away from her to address the stunned audience. "The emails you are reading are just a glimpse into the deceit I lived with. This is who Mary is." I stepped down from the stage, leaving her isolated in the glaring spotlight, her cherished reputation unraveling thread by thread. As the crowd absorbed the gravity of the betrayal, Mary fled the stage, her sobs echoing faintly over the murmur of shocked guests. The final image of her, crumpled in defeat, was a picture painted in deep satisfaction to my vengeful heart. The days that followed were filled with a heavy silence from her end. Legal threats came, of course, waved off by the ironclad evidence of her own words. Our mutual friends, once shared between warm dinners and laughter, now chose their sides, most siding with the image of the wronged husband. I had won, if one could call the hollow victory a win. Mary disappeared from the public eye, her career and social standing shattered. I heard rumors of her moving far away, a bid to rebuild her shattered life away from the ruins I had created. As for me, the vengeance had consumed much of the warmth I once held. The triumph was Pyrrhic, leaving a bitter taste in the wake of its aftermath. I realized, as I sat alone in the quiet of my now solitary home, that revenge had not brought peace, only a deeper shadow. In the end, we parted forever, not just from each other but from the people we once were. Betrayal had birthed revenge, and revenge had birthed nothing but emptiness, an end, truly, to more than just our marriage.